Awesome. Well, today we're going to talk about paths to enter the agentic economy, systems for e-commerce, and more. So glad we're recording, hoping that we can record more of these and post them up on the YouTube channel. Maybe encourage more involvement from some of our members. But today is going to be a high-level review of sort of what's going on in the agentic AI space, how that is integrated, or how crypto is involved in that. And then we'll talk at a sort of an introductory level on some of the potential paths that groups like monks with our DAO treasury, or even as individuals, that we can potentially start to get involved in some of these spaces. So real excited to do this. Spent a lot of time in this week, but haven't really presented it before, so hopefully it goes pretty smoothly, and we can jump right in. So to start with, one of the questions really, all of us have used this generative AI, this chatbot experience over the last couple of years, and things change quickly. I think one of the things we're going to experience more and more is the rate of change is going to continue to increase. And so, what's next? We all figured out basic chatbots, right? If everybody's doing it, then it's not really giving us an advantage. And so we have to figure out what's going on. In the last 3 years, that AI hype experience is finally evolving to the point where there's actual consequential capabilities available through AI. So it's a really large shift. As you can see here, 96% of global organizations are planning some kind of agentic AI usage in 2026. So this isn't a fringe adoption. This is if you're not doing this, you're in the bottom 4%. And so that is a very powerful statement. Now, they might not be using it everywhere across the board, but adoption is moving forward at an incredible rate. And honestly, like in 2024, AI just summarizing a meeting was exciting, but the bar has definitely been risen and is rising very fast and moving forward. So we've moved past just chatting with an AI chatbot and asking it for help, or make our email flow better. And with sort of the next step with agentic AI is, okay, well, how can we start to delegate work to these artificial intelligence, right? Representing that change from generative to agentic AI. And so, 25% of the current generative AI users are launching some form of agentic pilots or utilizing it in some fashion this year. So it's expected to double. 50% of the users are expected to be utilizing this in some capacity by sometime next year. And so we started off before the call. I think JJ mentioned he's looking to try to figure out an agent and launch something here pretty soon and dabble in it. And I think we're all kind of looking in that direction, right? If you're not getting ahead, you're getting left behind at the rate of change here. So have to figure out how to apply that. And we're seeing that utilization with everyone from students to professionals, whether they're, kids in school, college students, or, businesses, right? And looking for ways that AI can integrate with their workflows and start offloading some of those tasks and delegation. I really think that, as you can see here, those ROI statements, right? Companies are projecting an average ROI of 171% from agentic systems compared to traditional AI tools, right? So everything I put together today, I tried to put little links in here, and so we'll post the deck at the end. These are some really great news articles. It's kind of a time crunch to go through and build something like this in under a week, so I had to skim a few of them, but I'm looking forward to myself going and reading a couple of them that I didn't get to really dive in as deep with, but I definitely recommend them, and you got all the links here to learn more about it and educate yourself more deeply than we'll have time for today. So just wanted to note that you'll get the deck with the links at the end of the presentation. I think we got to understand, right, that even if AI isn't going to take your job, someone that's using AI will replace you if you don't take advantage of the benefits. And that goes for people that work for a company. That goes for people that are entrepreneurs. It's your competition that's going to replace you if you're an entrepreneur and you're not utilizing these capabilities. And it's someone else maybe coming up in the business or whatever. If you're working for a company, those are the immediate threats. The threat isn't that the AI is going to take your job. And so really just adopting it is so critical. And Agentic AI is without a doubt the next, not really the next, it's the current wave of advancement in productivity gains from AI systems. Like it's right now, it's not the future. And figuring out, where you can apply this and where you can profit from this is certainly, I think, critical. And we've talked before, like when we did Scrum trainings and everything else, right? Twice the work in half the time, etc. Right? How do you create these parabolic increases of productivity? And I simply can't understate the importance of finding those and going along with those capabilities. So Agentic AI is definitely the next big thing after chatbots. Chatbots are boring. Chatbots are here, but they're kind of done. They're not giving you an advantage anymore. And so that kind of pivots us a little bit to ask about, like, well, okay, why are they so important in the economy? The expectation here is by 2030, agentic bots, right, AI bots, are going to be running a $5 trillion machine-to-machine economy in an autonomous manner. $5 trillion, which is incredible. A huge potential to replace procurement as we know it, and many, many other things. I'll tell you here, the other day, I was on Amazon, right, on my phone. It's spring. I'm spending way too much money on stuff for my little mini farm in my backyard, right? And so, I fill up my cart, fill up my heart. I'm like, man, I don't know. It's so expensive. Should I order this stuff? And they got a little AI on there, right? I thought, oh, that's cool, because I clicked on it. I was like, what's the price history of this product? And it pulls up. It tells me the price history, AI bot to talk to, right? And then I figured out, well, utilizing this AI, it has the capability to go out there, search Amazon, scan for all kinds of similar products, pull those up, compare them on pricing, and give me, more information about, other similar products, what they cost within like a second. And so I go and I do this, right? And initially my cart's like, I don't know what it was, $160 or something, right? A few things I needed. And it ended up being like $120 for the purchase. There were already some of the stuff in my cart was, quote, on sale, right? It was, not all of it was full price or anything out the gate, but by utilizing that AI within like a second, I was able to find things that significantly lowered my costs, 25, 30% even of that purchase. And that was with me, a human, stuck in the mix, right? So you start to think, well, how does AI, right? How does AI impact procurement, right? Already we can do it manually, but as we look towards the future, right, adoption of agentic commerce is going to be huge, with the potential to honestly replace every type of shopping experience you have today online, hands down, all of it. You think about, like, maybe some people are similar situation as me right now. I am much more likely to interact with a generative AI to find information or help me to assess, products or say things that I need for my garden, for example, right? Than I am to go on Google, which was the center of our online search experience just 3 years ago or so, right? In a matter of about 3 years, Google search has all but been replaced for folks that are savvy, and it's a much, much better experience, right? That's just generative AI. The next step, you think, okay, well, your whole shopping experience now, your whole online economy experience is about to be replaced by Agentic AI, and we can be involved in that not only to use it to help ourselves, but from various ways to invest in it. So $5 trillion economy is huge. The expectation is going to be larger than most, the current GDP of most developed nations. So we're talking like massive amounts of money. And essentially what's being built right now is a parallel economy where the customers are AI agents acting on behalf of humans, right? You got a dog, you got a cat, right? Great. But your new pet, the pet in 2026, 2027, it's a agentic AI agent or 2 or 5 doing the things you need help with in your job and personal life. So very exciting future unfolding right now. By 2028, 1 in 5 digital storefront interactions will be handled by machines, 20% of all interactions. So that's huge. It shows you the level of adoption, and interactions are going to take just milliseconds. So the efficiency of procurement and the actual price negotiation process will be frictionless and nearly instantaneous. Scanning, comparing prices, making sure everything you need is in place, and then procuring what you need, right? All without human interaction, 24 hours a day, monitoring prices, waiting for the price points you're looking for, negotiating on your behalf. So they're going to ensure just-in-time procurement at the best possible cost with the awareness of your specific needs and purchase considerations that you've provided your agent, or that your agent that you've developed over time will know you better and be able to help make those decisions. And what's really interesting is that if you talk about like generative AI, like I kind of mentioned, looking for things on like, Gemini or ChatGPT or whatever, AI generated product recommendations for agents achieve 440%, right? 4.4 times higher conversion rates than traditional search to purchase products. So what that means, right? What that translates to for, say, a store or a business is that customers who land on your site, whether it's retail or service you're selling, are already coming from those chatbots, are already 38% more likely to make a purchase than those coming to your site from traditional search, right? 38% more. That's incredible. And so from the business standpoint, businesses need and want to adopt this. They have to. From our standpoint, as consumer as well, there's all these benefits. So it's not just about customers seeking better deals and more educated purchases and automating things, but it's essential for the storefronts. And I thought a really interesting statistic on this as well. ChatGPT drives 20% of the referral traffic to Walmart today. To Walmart. It's not some little, tiny retailer. 20% of the referral traffic comes from ChatGPT. That's incredible. It shows the adoption. And it's, a big red flag if we're not paying attention to these types of things. So, the role of crypto is really kind of where we start to get in and ask questions on this, right? Like, okay, we're a crypto group. We focus a lot on crypto. So like, what's the role here? Why do we care? The fact is that AI agents can't have a credit score. They can't open a bank account. They can't pass KYC or things like that, right? And for the machine-to-machine economy, right, for AI agents to be effective, to be frictionless, they have to be able to operate in an autonomous manner and make purchases, things like that. And they can't KYC. They can't show a driver's license or open the bank account or whatever. And so it really means that the TradFi system is closed to business on what's looking like to be the next major revolution in sort of economic growth, right? Completely closed. But on our side of the house, on the crypto side of the house, the agents can have access because you can give them access to the keys to a wallet, and you can give them permissions to perform transactions as a human operator. So that's kind of why it's so critical. And also from the standpoint of micropayments, right? Or continuously streaming, tiny amounts of money for various things. You can't do that on traditional finance because the fees are going to be too high. Can you imagine doing that with a credit card? They would absolutely eat your transaction alive, because it would be like, 99% transaction fees. Wouldn't work. Because your AI agent, right? Your agentic agent might need to pay for things like that are a fraction of a cent. It could be like, I need to call an API and there's a fee, or I need to access compute as a service, or storage as a service, or stream micropayments for whatever reason. All those things are really only possible through systems that are built on blockchain. And so setting up your wallet, providing the access to an agent, setting spending caps and rules and things like that allow for, instant settlement, not days, allow for those types of interactions. I think agent-to-agent transactions, they require that speed, right? The rails have to be lightning fast. They have to be available 24/7. They have to be final settlement, and those are all things that, again, decouples the human biology from the sort of online experience of anything that's happening financially, right? And I talked a lot about sort of like, just from the consumer standpoint, or the buying and selling of services and products, but we're also talking about things like, investing and day trading and moving money and all the things that can happen online that we might want to participate in. So with that said, like, what about all that KYC bullshit, right? In America, like, yeah, I'm pretty sure you can't even buy McDonald's online without, 3 forms of ID and maybe even an FBI background check, right? It's ridiculous. So how would this even be legal in the world that we know with KYC? Because obviously, if KYC was, required for every transaction, then this, supposed, incoming $5 trillion economy, it'd already be dead in the water, right? There's no way that it could function. And so what that really means is that there's going to have to be a shift in the way that things are validated and trusted, right? You get it. You gotta make sure that bad actors aren't doing bad things, that good actors can move forward. And so part of that is moving towards cryptographic credentials, right? Which is essentially the idea of moving from like identity from an ID to identity through code. Kind of think like a credit score for your AI agent that shows proof of principle, and principle meaning like ownership, like there is a real person that owns and operates this, and that they're a good actor, right? And so that sort of proof that the parent of the AI, or like I kind of mentioned, kind of like a pet and an owner experience, that it isn't using I don't know, the parent's credit card without permission type of thing, because it's going to have that verifiable intent to transact, and the laws are not caught up to this, but the goal is to be able to have the appropriate legal backing, right? You need to have legal accountability, right? You need to have liability for the transaction. If an AI agent goes on there and spends $10,000, right? Who owns that stuff? And what if there's issues, right? Like, positive or negative, there's got to be a human attached to it on the back end in some way. And so I think, non-custodial wallets, right? They will allow agents to transact without a human like a middleman actively involved, because they can have these sort of identity requirements handled in advance. Allowing them to interact with global markets instantly, whether it's to trade money in a wallet like the Dow owns, or whether it's make purchases on behalf of you or your business. And this doesn't mean it's unregulated. It means that what's being built out is self-regulation through code. So pretty exciting stuff going on. And the laws are going to need to catch up, but we're on the bleeding edge here, right? And the way that's being done, right, is that modern license for your pet, right, for your little pet AI agent, right? It's KYA, right? Know your agent, as opposed to, traditional ID. So a lot of stuff like right now just coming out around this. And so we all know Sam Altman, right? OpenAI CEO. So he's involved in a project World, and they just released an agent kit, which is a toolkit designed to help the AI agents prove that they're backed by a real human, right? And this uses what's called the X402 protocol. It's an open standard that lets an agent see a payment required sign on a website and pay it instantly with stablecoins, right? So they're building the bridges and the rails to handle that KYA and to allow that interaction. And human-backed agents can now be verified through toolkits like World ID to prove that at the end of the day, there's a human that's the ultimate beneficiary, but you also don't have to provide your personal information, with each transaction, that type of thing. So think of it like a digital badge or a pass that shows the merchants that your agent is safe and legitimate and they should do business with it. Because without that capability, the concern is, okay, well, is this fraud? Or how do we know, is this suspicious behavior? And telling the difference between a good agent versus the identity of like a bad, bot out there to scam or cause issues is a very large concern that has to be handled as these systems are put into place. And so the holy grail is really, right, the privacy and speed that we all want from these sort of no KYC types of systems, but offering a level of security that can be verified with a standardized protocol. So that's what's going on currently to allow this to happen. And once you kind of take a look at from the security perspective, you say, okay, well, that's starting to get locked in, right? Now you have to start looking, okay, well, we want to take payments, right? We want this to be universally available. And so MPP, the Machine Payment Protocol, you see on here, just launched. And this is co-authored by Stripe and Tempo. And it's an open standard for autonomous machine payments. So this protocol is backed by major players, right? Stripe, MasterCard, Visa have all signed on to this. So again, this is not a fringe, right? The smart money, they are playing in this ecosystem. They are building the rails. They are choosing the winners and moving forward because, they see the writing on the wall and understand if their business doesn't prepare now to adapt and be part of this, they won't have a business going forward. And so what MPP really does is it creates sort of think like a session or, I don't know, cookie on your browser. I don't know if it uses cookies or not. I don't know how it works, technically, but think of it like that, where you would authorize that agent one time for a certain permission, like, hey, you could go spend, a certain amount of money, over a certain period of time for, purchasing services, right? For example, right, like if you are, here's a good one. You're trying to plan out your meals for the month, right? Got a whole bunch of mouths to feed at your house, whole family. You got to get your groceries, got to do all this, plan out your meals. So you say, okay, well, I want an agent, right, that's going to go ahead and help me plan the meals that I need for my family. Have my generative AI and my agent help figure out what do we need from a grocery perspective, when do we need it, and then, okay, great, but I don't need all my food on the first day of the month. That stuff's going to spoil, right? Especially, greens and vegetables and stuff, okay? So maybe it's going to figure out, I want it spread out, I want a delivery once a week, okay, here's what I need to make all my meals, okay, the agent can go out, right? We want that agent going out and checking the prices at the 3 closest grocery stores, figuring out what the delivery costs are, right? Determining the savings, comparing the prices, and then maybe sorting the meals in a way that gets you the cheapest price each week at the lowest cost of the whole month. And now, you receive your food on time at a lower price. It's much fresher. It's just in time. Your family eats healthier for cheaper. You go to the store less. You save on gas. You're happier. You have more time with your family. Just one example of how we're going to see agentic AI interacting with all of our systems, making those decisions, making those purchases, planning them out. And that's just on a personal level. You start to think towards your business. You start to feed data into it so it has history and understanding of the trends of your business. How much do you need of various materials on average each year, at each month during maybe seasonal businesses, etc. What's your rate of growth? What are the expectations? It can start to help you to predict and order and shop. And if it knows that next month you're going to need $5,000 of certain materials, and it's monitoring and it's approved to buy it, and it finds out, hey, we can get it for 20% cheaper this month, maybe it knows to reach out to you and, get permission to purchase, or maybe you gave it permission in advance to purchase. So these are all examples of ways that this can certainly impact you through these sort of pre-approved protocols where you set up what it's authorized to do, and it can do that 24/7 without your involvement. Visa, MasterCard, Shopify, right? It's here, and those are the people that really matter. And so from here, I think we jump into a little bit of a discussion, and these are going to be high level. Probably want to look to do some deep dives on these over the coming weeks, but at a high level, kind of to look at two different platforms where you can actually put agentic AI into play to work today, and that would be Virtuals and Autonomous. So the first platform that we'll take a quick look at is Virtuals. So I'd consider this sort of it's like the consumer side of AI, right? It's built on base network. It's built to launch agents with a personality, with their own voice and a wallet, right? And what's interesting about this protocol is the way that these agents are, I'm going to say minted. I don't know if that's the exact right word, but the way they're like bored or minted, because a lot of crypto projects and things out there are going to be, ceded to insiders and stuff like that. But that's not the way these work. And so 100% of the new agents tokens are added to liquidity pool, allowing everyone to have a fair opportunity to gain fractional, co-ownership as they're developed, which is, I think it's nice. A lot of projects wouldn't do something like that. And so these initial agent offerings, right? All the tokens go into the pool, and if you decide to partake and earn some of those tokens or buy them, it makes you a co-owner of that agent's economic output as it earns revenue, right? So oftentimes on Virtuals, you're talking about things like it could be involved in things like gaming and social media. Or commerce, and some of these agents, even with parts of the revenue they earn, have a buyback strategy where they're going out into the market and trying to buy back and essentially burn tokens of ownership of itself, which then increases the value per token for the tokens you earn. So it's like a revenue share model in a lot of ways. The ecosystem of Virtuals has been growing significantly, so it's about $500 million approximately in market cap, which is pretty awesome. And what I think is great is that it's a no KYC way that you can start to get involved in and own a piece of the agentic AI revolution. Potentially even something that a DAO could invest in, given that there's fewer concerns from a KYC standpoint, right? So it kind of moves the hustle from, say, us, right? If you invest in it, to an AI agent. It's like, hey, AI agent, here's, we're going to invest, buy tokens, right? So let's say you go and you buy, $10,000 of tokens for an agent that, you believe in on Virtual's platform. It's doing something, say, hey, it's generating revenue. This looks really exciting. We think it's going to be positive. We'll put $10,000 to buy some tokens. Now that AI agent is going out there 24/7, working to generate that revenue from your investment. So pretty cool stuff there. The team went through, kind of tried to learn a little bit about the team. Didn't get to do a really big deep dive in, but a couple of folks you see here, Jensen Teng and Wei Qi, both former consultants at Boston Consulting Group, and they previously ran Path DAO, which I wasn't super familiar with, and I'd like to read into more, but it turns out it's one of the world's largest gaming guilds. And so from that perspective, that sort of sphere of background and understanding has helped them to really understand how to coordinate thousands of people around a digital asset. And so as we're talking about these types of bots, they're really focused on interacting in many ways with people. And the main agent, the flagship agent, is called Luna. And Luna has 500,000 followers. And successfully manages her own wallet, even hiring human contractors to, take care of tasks and things she's done that can't be done agentically at this time, right? So it's really like sort of a proof of concept agent on Virtuals. She does things like live streams. She manages her own treasury. And the agentic part is really like, let's say she needs like a new banner or graphics or, whatever for promotional video. Doesn't have to go ask the developers, right? She goes on chain, whatever she needs, right? She posts a bounty and hires maybe a human developer, or for whatever it might be. It might not be graphics related, but whatever she needs, she hires a human as needed to do that, and gets it done. And then from there, she uses the money from her streams to pay for them, right? So there's a sort of income stream into the wallet. Use that money to reinvest it into growing her business. So pretty cool stuff there. Thought that was really fascinating. Already mentioned the Path DAO, but you can invest in two ways. You can invest in the virtual token, or you could invest in specific agents on the platform, right? So it gives a couple of paths to potentially invest in it. And I want to highlight, it's just a few years ago where everything was just speculation, right? Meme coin, or, even the real, the non-meme coins were kind of like pure speculation in many cases. This is a complete departure from that sort of meme coin world of the past. It's utility first AI that's going out there to generate real revenue by completing tasks or events or whatever that drive value, and bringing in revenue from the real world back into itself. So that's a huge deal. That's a huge shift. The other platform, OLAS, or Autonomous, is more like, so if Virtuals was like, sort of consumer focused, this is more about doing the heavy lifting of the internet, right? So these are agents that manage billions in liquidity. They could do things like rebalancing portfolios, performing data indexing, all kinds of sort of more data-driven, serious type of work. And in a lot of ways, I'd say like the other one kind of feels like a little bit like a toy or social media sort of more focused. This one, not as much. It's a functioning agent economy with real volume, and the jobs it does are often, a penny or whatever. But even if the revenue is very small, right, it's about volume, right? Micropayment volume. So that's kind of how this scales up through microtransactions at, say, like the 1 cent, per job fee structure in agentic commerce. So it runs on, I believe, primarily Gnosis, because other platforms that it does support, like Base and Polygon, the same job costs just a lot more in gas than the service fee itself sometimes. So you'll see typically OS is going to be running on Gnosis chain. And so the OLS merch marketplace, it's already indexed about 360,000 completed agent jobs across the 4 blockchains it supports. Again, Gnosis, Base, Polygon, and Optimism. So it is multi-chain, and those agents, they earn fees for the work they do. Again, same thing like virtuals, those fees come back into the ecosystem. It's real payments sort of driving growth of that ecosystem. So it's led by Dr. David Minarsh, I think you say that. So he's a PhD in economics, and I think more interestingly in game theory, because an understanding of game theory, I think, is really important, because the mathematics, and you're dealing with agentic bots, right? The math, the code, is the law of the land, and keeping those agents honest and productive is part of the game. And so you really have sort of like that specialized knowledge and hopefully how to make something like this work. The project itself is a spin-off of Valerie, which was a research firm dedicated to sort of co-owned AI experiences and decentralized autonomous systems. And it was incubated by Valerie before it became sort of mainstream. And I think that if it says anything, it says that it probably has a higher degree of pedigree as far as technical reliability and whatnot than maybe some other projects out there. As a whole, this is still very early stuff, right? Very early stuff. But $14 million in Series A funding was raised, and they're utilizing the money they've earned to sort of expand across all major EVM chains, and just really with a focus on trying to position the autonomous project as the primary infrastructure for the emerging machine-to-machine economy. So, yes. So one success story here, right? And I wonder if it's supposed to say, like, if it's supposed to be pronounced. I was thinking about this. I'm sure I could probably ask ChatGPT, but I was like, is it supposed to be like called AI Exhibit? Because that would totally make sense, right? Like, to kind of demonstrate the capabilities. But anyways, it's AI XBT for whatever reason that it is spelled that way. I guess maybe in a deep dive we can learn more about it and see if my hypothesis is true. But in any case, in earlier this year, right, it kind of became the first like breakout agent to prove that agentic AI could perform as a high value market analyst. And there's over 400,000 individual holders. So a lot of people are invested in it. So that kind of asks, like, why would like 400,000 people want to invest in this agent? And it's honestly, it's because it's better at its job than any human team, right? And so what it's doing is it's utilizing its AI to, as it says here, aggregate real data from across 400 plus influencers on-chain feeds for information arbitrage for its holders. So we've dealt with arbitrage before as monks, right? Like we went in, we said, okay, you got you got some, I don't know, some Matic over here on one exchange and some Matic over here on another exchange, and the prices aren't the same. And based off the transaction fees, you can buy up $1,000 of Matic on this exchange, and you can transfer it over there, and you can sell it, and you can make whatever you make, right? Arbitrage, right? Moving things from place to place. But they're doing this with information, and it's measuring the pulse of the market, like literally scanning for every tweet, every Discord it can access, every activity or whatever on the blockchain in real time, in order to gain insights at a speed that a human quite literally has no chance of being able to do. And it's designed to take this information and build and provide market intelligence through not just, typically, like, you might be looking at price charts if you're day trading, right? Like, oh, what is the pattern, et cetera, et cetera. But this kind of looks at the other side, which is narrative detection, right? When you're day trading, right, a lot of it is how will people behave, and how people behave is oftentimes impacted by what is the narrative that they believe, right? What is the information they're taking in that's impacting their decisions? And it is getting that narrative and information faster than we ever could, and building signals, and then providing those signals downstream to its owners. So if you want the high-speed signals, right, the premium ones, then you're going to have to hold a certain amount of AI XBT, right? So it kind of creates this reason why to own a bunch of it, which is always nice. But to give you an example, in the last month alone, AI XBT outperformed the broader DeFi market by 17%. Not half bad. You hold the tokens, you get the utility, and hopefully you trade better, you make money. So it's not just a ticker; it's like a subscription key to the superhuman brain that's analyzing the thoughts of things going on in the market. And again, there's sort of like two halves, right, to this program. So there's the AI XBT terminal. So if you're doing trading, if you're a trader, I know some people in here are, some monks are, maybe some other listeners on YouTube are. That's the terminal is more like your professional dashboard for a day trader, right? Data visualization, custom alerts, deeper tracking of surging projects, all that kind of stuff, right? If you're looking more surface level, right, you can actually just interact. They have an X agent, right? So you can follow AIXBT, the account on X, formerly Twitter, where it autonomously posts market takes and will interact with users. So kind of two places you can look at and interact with data at different levels. So really cool success story there. Just an example of the fact that we're already seeing things producing. So this kind of moves on to governance and staking, right? We're all familiar with staking, to generate yield. And so staking is the primary way to earn protocol yield generated from autonomous agents, right? If you're looking for something a little simpler, right? I don't want to day trade, don't have time, whatever it is. Investing through sort of that set it and forget it strategy of staking is potentially a good way to do it, right? Not everybody has the time or the interest to go all in and trade all the time. So because that, right, we're all familiar, you got rates with, like, say, Ethereum, right? Maybe it's 3 or 4%. It's pretty easy to predict your yields, pretty consistent on these proof of stake networks. It's totally different and hard to predict, on OLAS or, it just works totally differently. But that said, whether it's virtual or OLAS, you're probably talking like 10%, maybe 15% is a likely baseline for staking and that set it and forget it experience right now in 2026. But again, it's just a little hard to predict. In any case, you're probably talking 2, 3, 4 times, maybe even 5 times if ETH is on the bottom end of what you might make staking on Ethereum. So some good opportunities there to just park some money for the DAO, right? Why not? Park some money, get our feet wet, that type of thing. So I thought that was cool. The OLAS system, you actually are in VE-OLAS, which gives you governance rights. I don't know that we'd really get involved in that, but if help, you get to take part in deciding sort of what the agents are going to do, right? Are they going to do portfolio management? Are they going to do supply chain logistics? Or, are they going to do something else? So you can kind of vote on that. And yeah, again, small, right? Small yield. Say it's a penny a piece, but when you're talking millions of transactions, that adds up to real yield, which isn't coming like from printing new tokens. It's not like, hey, we're staking, and so the protocol is printing new tokens and diluting the network. No, the yield, right, from this staking is from the economy, the actual revenue being generated by these agentic agents. That's why it's a little bit harder to predict, because it's not some mathematical model of how do we devalue everything like the US dollar. It's how do we make this drive value to bring money in from outside. So that is super exciting. That is an amazing way to generate revenue through staking, in my opinion. Again, it's a no KYC way to be able to get exposure, something that the DAO could do, and invest in a way to maybe diversify our portfolio to get exposure to this passive income stream from the evolving AI landscape. So, love it. And of course, there's no risks, and number only go up. Yeah, we wish. There are risks, right? There's, I guess, three things that are kind of listed here, right? Agentic liability, right? I already mentioned there's a lot of gray area. I am not a lawyer. I think we might have one half asleep lawyer here, but AI agents are out there signing contracts and things like that. Do those legally bind the user or developer? What sort of corporate risk is this creating, right? I don't know. But those are questions that, I think need clarity. We've all dealt with hallucinations and, things like that with AI as well. So, it could be logic error or maybe, it makes some financial transactions or over purchases inventory without human, oversight. Who's responsible for that, right? There could be challenges there. There could be risks. And then there's fraud. We talked a lot about fraud earlier. I think, it says almost 80% of financial institutions expect a spike in agentic fraud. Like, no duh. Like, fraud is going to be it's everywhere. It's already everywhere, right? So bots designed specifically to be malicious, to mimic legitimate, agents, to slip through security, right? Those are all risks that, are in the marketplace, right? You only invest what you can afford to lose, right? That's the age-old saying. So, yeah, it continues to be the case, but that's what it is, living on the edge. I think right now, as we're kind of like starting to close the door on like just the internet of information, the door that's opening is internet of value execution, right? So like in the 2010s, we were the product for big tech, right? For Facebooks and social medias and all of that. Then in the early 2020s, right? We started to be, users of generative AI and, getting to dip our toes in and understand what it was. But now, in 2026, I think probably for the first time, I mean, maybe there was something, last year or whatever, but really in 2026, we actually have opportunities to be the owners of an AI, right? Agentic AIs and things like this, to actually be part of that potential chain of productivity and of profit and to share in that and share ownership as well as the revenue. So I think the data is clear. This is a historic fork in the road. We talk about almost 70% of businesses are going to be utilizing AI agents over the next couple of years. And we can either be sort of passive consumers in the technology where we're the ones paying the fees and hopefully getting value out of it, or at the same time, we could be the owners actually generating passive revenue because the agents that we own or own a fraction of are doing the work and generating those fees. Uh, so I think as we look towards you know the next, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, right? The big divide is going to be from those who actually have and have executed on and continue to participate in an agentic strategy, and those who don't, who are just getting drug along and being milked for their money to get what they need from the system. Um, and without the KYC requirements, this $5 trillion machine-to-machine economy that's expected to develop, it's open to us. It's open 24/7. We don't need to get anybody's permission to participate and join in, and that's super exciting because there's so many things out there that we look at and we talk about, even as of recently on some of these investment discussions that just are fascinating. But we could do it as an individual that's KYC'd, maybe in our personal account, but we can't participate as a DAO because of the stringent requirements. Um, yeah. So lastly, sort of like, potential next steps, right? There's so much to do because I think there's viable investment paths for our DAO, right? If we want to look at that. And while this was a pretty long talk, we're almost out of time today. We covered a lot. I feel like a deeper dive into one or both the virtuals and autonomous might be important next steps if there is interest from the folks here in learning more and potentially looking at this as a future DAO proposal to get a little exposure. And so I'm definitely open to doing maybe a session on each. And I'd want to plan to make sure I have enough time to do, a quality deep dive. It took a lot of time in the last week to put this together and wrap my mind around it and understand it. I'm sure there's holes and gaps and things, and probably questions that I can't answer. But if we're interested, we can dig in deep. And that's kind of the end of the content. That's the last slide there. But with that, maybe think about sort of what y'all maybe are most interested in, and potentially we'll do some more of this over the next couple of weeks. So I appreciate it, and I think that's the end of the prezo. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Nice. Yeah, I'd love to read about that. I hadn't heard about it.